Thanks for joining me. This is the report for May 11th. I'm going to start out by giving a shout out to Toxic Day. That's going to be June 24th. That's the Big Bait Makers Day to come together out at Russo's Marine. And again, that's June 24th. So you guys that are into swim baits and custom baits, make sure you hold that date. You can get more information at the Toxic Bait website or on their Instagram. That is, again, June 24th. It's going to be a family-friendly day. It's going to be, I think it's going to be a great day for bass fishing in general. So be out there. All right, we're going to just skip through river conditions. The last week, river conditions have been all over the board. We'll talk about them as I get into the reports, but you know what happened last week, we had 90-degree weather to start the week. It dropped 30 degrees one day. We've had rain, we've had wind. So it's been all over the board. We will talk about river conditions, and I'm going to talk about, as I said last week, how the tides are going to affect us out here for the next month or so with the snow melt coming and the cooler water temperatures coming down the delta. So let's get right into the stripers, and it's been a really good year or good week for stripers. Jeff Suhu had been out Saturday and Sunday. He started both days with 60 pieces of live bait, and he had gone through those baits by 9:30, 10 o'clock in the morning. Lots of fish. Saturday he had limits of fish from 8 to 12 pounds. Sunday, nice limits of fish, but they were a little smaller, up to about 10 pounds, but just multiple fish. Jeff is fishing right around the main channel, and he's just live baiting. He says there's enough fish in the system right now where you can find them, get on top of them, drop live bait down to them, and you should do very well. On a bright note also, they're still picking up a lot of fish out in the bay. There's a lot of fish coming down the Sacramento River. So we should really see in the next week, the next few weeks, the next month or so, we should have some really good striper fishing in the Delta. I talked with Alan Fong. He's reporting good catches out around Liberty. Not quite as many fish out there as there should be, but the Sacramento River is fishing very well. He has been catching fish on swim baits. He had a friend that got a 31-pounder up there last week. I was out at Vieira's Marina, I guess it was on Friday, and talked to the local guys up there. They're all happy about what's going on locally around Vieira's. They're all catching fish. The guys around Paradise Point, they're primarily drifting live bait, and they're picking up fish. The fish are all over the system. They're really flooding in, and I think you guys that are hardcore striper guys, you should be out there, out on the water now. You should catch some fish. I also talked with the Fish King. He's been going out of B&W, fishing locally around McCallamy, throwing swim baits, glide baits. He's got fish up to 16 pounds. So there's a good class of fish in the system. And for those of you who are out there, you're probably having a lot of fun. So that's the striper report. And let's get into the largemouth bass report. A couple tournaments last week, and I'm going to go over them real quickly because I don't think we got a whole lot of information from what happened in the tournaments. I will say Christian Ostrander won the first Wednesday nighter. I think he had 22 pounds. I got to fish with Christian a couple days after the tournament. We did a little video, so that should be coming. I'll try to set that one up for tomorrow. If you guys are watching the channel, you want to check out Christian a little bit. So we'll have that video up tomorrow. I know Wild West was won. The team tournament was won with, I think, just a little over 20 pounds. And I know right around midsection of both of those tournaments, the guys were really only pulling in at maybe 11, 12, 13 pounds. Good fishermen, still struggling. I saw a lot of talk on social media that a lot of the guys that fished both of those tournaments found the fishing very difficult. Now, I want to talk about a group of 7 friends of mine that came up and did a 1-week trip on the Delta. Now, these guys have been doing this trip for about 32 years, and I want to shout out their names real quick. It's Mike, Steve, Bruce, Kurt, Rick, Howie, and Yoshi. They invited me out to dinner. I don't know how good a fisherman these guys are, but they sure are good cooks. I appreciate you guys having me to dinner, and we got a chance to chat. But I got a report from the 7 here. They fished 6 days, out of 3 boats. They were stationed in Discovery Bay. They're all experienced Delta anglers. Like I said, some of these guys have been doing the same trip for 32 years. And I got a detailed report. 3 boats going out every day. They fished every tide. They stayed probably within 10 or 15 miles of Discovery Bay. They were reporting that water clarity around Disco Bay was only a couple feet, so they were moving out of the bay and fishing around. Mostly they got a lot of fish between 1.5 to 2 pounds, 2.5 pounds. And out of the years that they've been coming up here, this is one of the slowest years that they reported. And that kind of mimics everything that everyone else has been seeing out here. I know they talked about a very minimal topwater bite in the morning, very change of light related. As soon as the sun goes up, that's when you're going to get the bite, and then it drops off. They caught most of their fish on slow moving baits, and that has been the key. It's been my key to catching fish out here. Pitching and flipping, the punching bite hasn't been all that great, and the guys that are picking up fish on moving baits are sporadic, and they seem to be smaller fish that are taking the moving baits. So that was a list of 7 guys that fished 6 days, and that's what they found. Now Keith from Free Spooling, he went out of Rivers Inn Marina. Water visibility is 1.5 feet. He's looking at 59 to 62 degree water temps. Very slow out of Rivers Inn. JJ, he was out in that same area, and he's finding about 2 feet of visibility, same water temperatures. I was around fishing the flooded islands, and I'm seeing anywhere from 62 to 58 to 62 in that same temperature range. But when I get up around the McCollum, the McCollum is running about 56 degrees. Now as you get into White Slough, some of the offshoots of the McCollum, you get down the sloughs like Hog, Beaver, Sycamore, you're going to get 64, maybe even 65 degrees. Last week, as we come into this week, we're going to get some really warm weather. So again, what I'm talking about, temperatures and visibility can all change very dramatically, and I'm hoping it is there. I know we got a small front coming in Monday, but all in all, we're supposed to get some 90-degree weather coming in, and I think that's going to really kick the bass bite on. Now, what did I do? My keys to success and what I'm looking at in the next couple weeks. Number one, for you guys that have been out there, you notice we still have high water, a lot of water in the Delta. The outgoing tides are going to be swift and strong. The incoming tides are going to be slow. It's going to feel like you're out there and there's not much of a tide, but the water is rising. And that's because there's going to be so much runoff here in the next 4 to 6 weeks that we're still going to continue to have these high tides. High, strong, outgoing tides. So kind of plan your day around that. If I think those outgoing tides are going to be good at the start of the tide and at the end of the tide, but when that tide really gets moving, it's going to be tough fishing, just like it's a dead tide, because most of the fish are going to be in tight, real tight, tucked in behind things to get out of that really strong outgoing tide. Along with that strong outgoing tide, let's think about this. We're going to have snow melt this year, so that water coming out of the McCollum, coming from down south, and by the way, down south is still flooded, and it's going to be another 4 weeks before they even open up a lot of the stuff down past Mossdale and down south on the San Joaquin. But the San Joaquin is going to be running high and cold. So if you think about what's going to be happening, the bigger tributaries to the Delta, the Sacramento River, the San Joaquin, the McCollum, they're all going to be running high and cold, and those are going to cool off. Even if it's a couple of degrees, it's going to make the water temperature cooler on those tributaries. So you might want to start really looking at temperatures as you get out there, and as everything starts to level out, it's going to become more and more normal. But this next 3 or 4 weeks, you're going to see cooler water temperatures on the bigger tributaries, warmer water temperatures towards the backs of the sloughs. And you also have to think about weed growth and what that's going to do to the weed growth. The Elodea or the Agiridensia, which are the two common weeds that grow out on the delta, they grow best at about 70 degree water temps, and they need clear water to get sunlight penetration. So their growth is stunted right now. We've got pretty clear conditions as far as weed growth, but also think about, when you start punching 3 or 4 weeks from now, when punching really comes into play, when we get that hot weather, we're going to have a little cooler water around the channels and the tributaries. That might be the place to punch rather than going to the back sloughs. Right now, going to the back sloughs and finding that warmer water is probably the thing to do. In a few weeks, we might start finding more and more fish being more and more active in a little bit cooler water. And we're only going to talk about a difference between, when it gets in close to the 70s, maybe the difference between 68 and 70 or 70 and 72 degrees. But that could be a big difference in the next few weeks when you're out searching around for fish. Now, what have I done and what has been my key for success? And I've had really a pretty good week. And I'll tell you, I talked to Alan Fong. He's had a really good week also. And I have fished everywhere from, I'll just say, Railroad Cut up to north of Liberty Island. And my fishing experience has been about the same everywhere I've gone. But here's the difference for me, and I can say this, it's probably the difference for Alan every week. Alan knows the water that he's fishing, and he has lots of spots that he can rely on. I'm not Alan Fong, but I've been fishing a lot for the last 3 weeks, and I have 3 or 4 spots in the central delta, and I have just a couple of spots up north. I contribute my success to knowing the spots that I have been getting fish on and going to those spots and catching fish at the right time and the right tide. Now, if you don't get to go out there a whole lot, if I was going out only once a week, I'll just say my confidence wouldn't be where it's at right now. I've been working small areas at the right tide, and I've been catching fish. Out of that time frame and out of the areas that I've been fishing at the right time, it's been slow, whether it's south or whether it's up north out of Liberty. I can say another thing, that almost all of my fish are coming pitching and flipping. Now, the difference between what I call pitching, flipping, and punching is I am not punching surface vegetation. I'm flipping into heavy cover, and all the heavy cover that I'm fishing is either wood or tules, and primarily tules. I'm getting as far back in the tules as I can, and that's where I'm finding the fish. When I talk about pitching, I'm pitching to the outside of the tules in more open water. I've been getting a few fish on the edge of the tules, but most of them I'm flipping as far back into tules as I can. I'm using brush hogs. I'm using things like rodents, plastic worms. By the way, I have been doing some filming, and I will be doing a video hopefully in the next week or so. As soon as I get the time to edit it, it will be fishing soft plastic baits, flipping and pitching primarily. And what I'm going to go over in that video is exactly what I'm doing in the last couple weeks. And the fish are for me, have been good quality size in the 2.5 to 5 pound range, mostly in, I'll say, the 2.5 to 4 pound range, but I've got fish up to 5 pounds. Not a lot of dinks. The bigger fish are just holding back in the tules. And again, I am fishing the first 2 hours of the outcoming or the first 2 hours of the incoming. That seems to be, as long as that tide is moving and not moving too fast, that's when the fish have been biting. Once the tide really gets going, the fish kind of die off a little bit, and at slack tide, the fishing has been not so good. So with that, guys, I want to thank you guys for watching. I'm looking here to see if I've missed anybody. Oh, you know what? I forgot one thing. I want to hit up a friend of my son Nathan's, JR, and JR is from JRP Custom Lures. You guys from the Bay Area know who JR is. He is an outstanding custom bait pour. He pours plastics, obviously, and that's his specialty. He does both largemouth and striper baits. But JR sent me this picture, or sent Nathan this picture of this nice bass that he caught, and I definitely want to hit JR up because he took the time to talk about how he handled the fish, how he quickly took the picture, and he released that fish to live another day. And I just wanted to give JR a big shout out for his conservation efforts. And I want to just remind everybody that, you know, only harvest what you're going to eat, whether it's stripers, largemouth bass, whatever you're fishing for out there. We have to protect the resource. And as a final note, I want to hit JR up, JRP Custom Lures. Check out his website. If you are looking for especially paddle tail swim baits for stripers, JR is the best guy to go to. And you guys that are around the Bay Area know JR, you know what I'm talking about. Custom pours, great colors, and if you haven't checked them out, check them out at JRP Custom Lures. So with that, guys, that's the skinny. And I think next week, as we get these more stable weather conditions, we can start really talking about the patterns that's going on, that are going to occur, and will hold for a while, other than just coming in every week and saying it's all across the board, which it is. But if I was going out, and I will be going out a lot, I'll tell you, I'm going to have 5 rods on my deck. All of them are going to be plastics for pitching and punching type stuff, and I'll have a couple rods with a chatterbait and a crankbait on, maybe I might have a spinner bait on just for the heck of it, but those are going to be on a short leash, because I've been doing really pretty consistent with just not the punch, but the flipping and the pitching. So I want to thank you guys for watching. If you haven't subscribed, make sure you subscribe. I'll be here next week and I'll let you know what's going on. See you guys on the water.